Hi Claire,
Hey Louise.
how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm very excited for this conversation.
Me too. So, welcome to Ripping Up the Rulebook, podcast series from Culture Minds, where we like to talk about challenging the status quo in organisations and leadership particularly, where we like to be a little bit radical and do things differently. Talk to us about you and your organisation.
So I am co-founder and CEO of WildEdge Worx, and the easiest way of describing what we do is we coach leaders and founders up mountains. And when I say that, it's usually quite divisive. People either go, huh? Or they go, ooh. And then we kind of know where to take the conversation from there. But my background is 20 years as a business and mindset coach and consultant. And my passion has always been for the outdoors, for hiking, for wild swimming. And me and my co-founder / husband, and I'm very happy to tell you any stories about that you want to, because that is definitely ripping up the rule book.
It is.
We decided to bring our expertise and our passion together to launch WildEdge Worx, which is experiential coaching for leaders and founders.
And it certainly is that, having been on a beacon walk
You have, yeah?
with you. For me, it was something different to that I'd ever done before, stepping outside into nature and having just space to think and talk. I came away from that session feeling like the fog had cleared. There was so much going on in my head that I just kind of felt like I'd spurted out on you on that morning. How far did we walk? 12k?
We had a decent hike.
It was a hike, and it was a windy one. But at the end of that session, there was clarity. Lots of inspiration and the energy to go and do, which was really useful for me as a founder director. Never had this, let's call it a role, before having come from a corporate world. It can be quite a lonely space sometimes. So for me, it was wonderful to be able just to have those sparring, that time to spar and think.
Yeah, I'm so glad you've experienced a beacon session, because it illustrates perfectly what we're all about and what we're building as a business. So you and I first met because I was doing a talk on, I think I mentioned imposter syndrome, didn't
Yes.
I? Which is what I coached on for 20 years. You know, I've coached thousands of founders to overcome their imposter syndrome. I've written a book on it. I've led courses, all the things. And yet it's the perfect kind of runway into what we're doing now, which is let's help you as a leader, as a founder, get into a state and have the inspirational ideas that you would not get in a million years bashing your head against the desk. Mm-hmm. And I mean, hopefully it's okay to say this, but on that walk that I led you on, and you were brilliant, by the way,
Thanks.
and you didn't realise that we were going through a framework.
No.
You know, it's all very intentional from our side, but you experienced what happens, and the idea for this podcast came out on it, right? And here we are.
Absolutely did. And I think within 24 hours, I'd started making plans to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was inspirational, but also really energetic. If that's the right word to use, it gave me a sense of drive and clarity.
Yeah.
And is that because, I'm interested, is that because of being outside in a different setting, being with nature? What is, obviously what you do is different to corporate coaching inside of an office space, for example, where you might often find traditional coaching or leadership development. What benefits or what inspiration did you have to take this outside into the wilderness?
So, for every major decision that me or my husband or us as a family have ever made, we've always taken it outside.
Okay.
Because for us, it's how we've got our clarity to make the right decision for us. So it comes from first-hand experience that this is a way of making a sound decision first and foremost. And to be really clear as well, I am a huge fan of traditional coaching. I should say, coaching programs, we do normal coaching. You know, we coach online, we coach in the office, we go to people's offices. But what we do now is blend in the outdoor stuff in order to supercharge what we're talking about. So you asked what kind of benefit they have. It's absolutely getting people out of the usual environment. That in itself, it cuts away the noise. Like, you know what it's like to be stuck in the weeds. You know what it's like to have a million different things on your to-do list, and know that there's other decisions you need to get to, i.e. working on your business, not just in your business, but just coming to the end of the day and your to-do list being longer than when you started. Knowing that you have got a day up a mountain, you've got an expedition day or a trailblazer day, it just gets you out of that environment and thinking about the stuff that's really going to move the needle for you. So that's one piece. And then the next piece is we've been doing some really interesting research around the neuroscience around getting outdoors into nature.
Okay.
We do a lot of strategy days with boards. So we take SLTs, boards up mountains to have at their board meeting. You know, we've got this magic whiteboard that you can roll and stick on a rock, which is really cool. But when you move side by side with somebody, your nervous system goes into sync. And if you think about the difficult conversations you've had in your business, starting from that place where your nervous system is in sync with the person that you're with, it is so much easier to come up with a cohesive win-win solution if you're starting from that space as well. And then the third piece I'd mention is what we call the moments of awe. So I'm a huge fan of AI. I'm building my business with an AI board, and this is my third business, and it is amazing how accelerated and amplified what we are doing using AI. However, you can't chat GPT your way up a mountain.
Not yet.
You've got to do the push-ups yourself. You know, your boots have got to get muddy themselves. And there is such a validation and an integrity and a credibility in actually scaling that peak yourself.
Yeah.
Or getting into that waterfall and experience the cold water for yourself. And when we are with a founder or a leader and they are standing on top of that mountain and they have had to dig deep to go up the stretchy bits, and we take them up the stretchy bits, looking out at, you know, the kind of vista that's spreading out below them and feeling that moment of awe and thinking, oh my gosh, I did that. You can't take that away from them. And running a business takes tremendous courage. You know, you have to dig deep every day. Everyone's looking to you for the answer, for the direction, for the vision, for the way out of whatever you're trying to navigate. And being able to trust yourself is so important. But getting outside and having that adventure, you're building that muscle memory of, yes, I can do this. I trust myself to lead. That was a very long answer, but I'm quite passionate about this.
And your passion comes through beautifully. And you're preaching to the converted, not only because as a people professional for a long time, having worked with senior leaders and seeing how valuable time out for yourself and your own professional development is not just a great return for yourself, but for the environment you work in, the people in your team, the culture. And what would your opinion be then, Claire, and what would the cultural cost be to leaders who are not making the investment in having coaching, whatever that might look like, whether it's inside the workspace or whether it's out in the Lake District? What's the cost, the cultural cost of not making that investment?
So I think that our economy and our political systems and the way that we run businesses is suffering from outdated patriarchal infrastructures. Now,
Agreed.
I'm not going to go too much down the patriarchy conversation today. I'll rein myself in. However, and this is a problem that affects men and women, by the way. You know, all the stuff around toxic masculinity, as well as women who are trying to be different people in order to lead. We've got the metrics of success all wrong. And we are given such a narrow definition of how we lead and what success looks like that it's such a shame, because we've got an opportunity to run more heart-led, purpose-led, impact-led businesses, but people don't know about it because they're trying to squish themselves into a very, very narrow version of success. My first business, a technology recruitment business, it looked awesome on paper. You know, my accountant was very happy with me. We had a decent sized team. I had amazing clients. I was being invited on the BBC as their careers expert, you know, all the kind of tick boxes of success. But I was absolutely miserable in that business because it was somebody else's version of success. And I'm pretty sure that dissatisfaction harmed us culturally.
Okay.
I've got no poker face, I couldn't hide it. But it was only when I stepped outside the working environment, the office environment, up on the moors in Haworth, actually, so coming back to the hiking, and gave myself permission to rip up the rule book and say, this is not my dream business. This is not how I want to run a business. I'm going to do it heart-led, in an aligned, authentic way, that everything started to change. And so I think that culturally, business founders, business leaders are on this hamster wheel of this is how we lead, this is how a founder's supposed to show up, this is the KPIs and the metrics and all the behaviours that we need to instill in our team, when actually it's just a really small part of what's important, what authentic, effective leadership means. And in my opinion, of course, the best way to understand the whole opportunity we have is to get outside and look at it in a fresh perspective.
I could sit here and talk to you all day about archaic organisations and how the structure of organisations that were built decades ago are still in existence but don't serve the purpose that is needed today around how to keep people engaged and satisfied and what creates a healthy workplace culture. But you'd said something there that was really interesting, in that we've got the metrics of success wrong. In your opinion, what should they be? What do they look like?
I believe every founder should get the opportunity to sit down and look at their own personal vision for their business, their own personal values, and then intentionally architect their business structure based on that. And I think if every founder were given that opportunity, then they'd make better hires. Their structures of their business would be more robust, but also more fun. And people would get better ideas, they'd be more creative, there'd be more community. So many different metrics than just how much cash you've got in the bank.
And it comes from a place of authenticity.
Completely.
And we often see that maybe where leaders have inherited a vision or inherited values, and often they've come from a textbook or a consultancy model, where actually they don't come from the purpose or the original why this business is even here in existence in the first place.
Totally. Yeah.
So that piece of work is vitally important to the longevity and success
Yeah.
of any business, because, as to your point, there needs to be that genuine relationship with what the culture is and how it is formed and shaped through the leadership team. It comes with intention, with heart.
Yeah, one of the pillars that we talk about is self first, strategy second, and I think the world's got it a bit wrong in terms of, you know, there's playbooks out there, there's frameworks and all these things, and I see a lot of people trying to white knuckle their way through leadership by creating this kind of Frankenstein monster of other people's ideas about strategy and what they should be doing. I mean, AI, don't get me started on that at the moment, and how everybody's jumping on that bandwagon. But if we kind of pause the strategy piece first and come back to a self first, then that opens up a whole new playground of intention, of authenticity, but also creating something really special. We don't want to create businesses that are just carbon copies of each other, because we might as well just iterate through AI and forget all human creativity. But with a self-first, strategy-second approach, it's having leaders who are vulnerable enough and self-aware enough to go, hang on a minute, it's my identity first and foremost, and everything cascades from there. And that takes courage. But I think it creates a business that's so much more robust and has so much more impact.
That's what we live and experience with our clients, when there is a genuine belief and connection to the purpose and cause, and almost tell that story to your team so that they're invested and they understand why your purpose, why your vision, because it's meaningful and it's personal.
Yeah.
And you can then translate that to your people around you in a meaningful, impactful way. But perhaps that might feel quite scary for some people who are sitting listening to this, that are in some kind of matrix organisation or structure where they might be worried about showing that vulnerability. What would your advice be to those people?
To the employees or to the leaders?
To the leaders listening to this thinking, that sounds amazing and I'd love to be able to do that, but I have a sense of vulnerability, to the rest of my team or my peers.
Yeah. I believe that vulnerability is a little signpost that there's an opportunity there, because usually if there's a vulnerability, that means that it's a coachable opportunity to go and work with a professional who can help you work through that dark pocket, shall we say, that they might not want to peer up that rock and look under, but actually that's the clue to the success.
Yeah.
I've got a great story that'll illustrate that. So I was working with a managing director of a law firm who had kind of been parachuted into the role, and she was feeling all the imposter syndrome about it. And her voice was not being heard on the board because she felt that vulnerability, and she was petrified of admitting, I don't really know what I'm doing here. And yet the big decisions that needed to happen, they weren't happening because she didn't feel able to take the risks and really go all in on what her thoughts were. She came on a Trailblazer day with me, and she came to me and said that she wanted to wild swim. Bearing in mind this was January.
Oh my goodness.
She was, that's what I mean, that vulnerability leaves clues. And I was, great, let's do it. And long story short, she got in that waterfall in January, and the grin on her face is like nothing I've ever seen. And she actually said the words, I feel invincible. But on that walk, getting in that water just kind of peeled back all the layers and all the protective masks that she'd put on as a leader. But getting in that water stripped everything back to her authentic core, to who she truly was at her core before the world told her who to be. And on the way back to the car on that walk, she had an idea that completely changed the trajectory of the business. In the last year, doubled in revenue, doubled in team size, and she's just absolutely smashing it. And so
Incredible.
if somebody is listening to this and thinking, sounds good, but I don't even know where to start with it, A, work with a professional who knows how to guide you through it, and B, what's the alternative? Carry on down the same trajectory and
So true.
That's kind of the point of leadership for me, is being brave and facing into those difficult
Absolutely.
conversations.
And sometimes I wonder if it's the leader, think it's a sign of weakness. Often we see leaders who really need the investment. Either they've probably been put into a position because of their expertise or their performance in the previous role. And it's so common. We see this all the time. I'm sure our audience does that. You assume this responsibility and this title, but no one's really guided you as to what skill set you need to be an authentic and effective leader. And sometimes we come across people who are resistant to engaging with, and I wonder if that's because of an inner vulnerability that they might think it's a sign of I'm not good enough. Or will it show up a capability issue? Or what will the perception of my peers or overall leader be? How would you get those people to the point of going, yes, this is something that I should invest in?
I would love to get my hands on those people. We love to work with accidental CEOs. So your traditional alpha, rah, give me all the cash, they're probably not people that we could do too much with. We love to work with the people whose company has outgrown their leadership. And we're essentially talking about imposter syndrome, aren't we? Those feelings of not being worthy, feeling of fraud, feeling like I'm going to get found out and everyone's going to realise that I don't know what I'm doing as a leader. But actually, if someone is listening to this or watching this and has got those feelings, I would celebrate it like crazy because it means you're out of your comfort zone and therefore growing. So that's the first thing, is just to acknowledge, oh my gosh, look how far I've come. And then the next thing is to make sure that your vision is greater than your fear.
Okay, tell us more.
So, vision greater than your fear. Whenever you step outside your comfort zone, your mind is wired in order to pick the most effective voice it can to sabotage you doing the scary thing and bring you back into your comfort zone, even if it's not serving you. So, in order to actually push through that imposter syndrome, because that's all we're talking about here, you've got to be so in love with what you're creating in your business, so in love with the impact that you're having on the world, that it is exciting enough for you to step outside your comfort zone and do it anyway. You know, it's got to feel aligned, it's got to feel authentic, it's got to feel like yours, and it's got to align with your values as well. And when you can do that, it is so much easier to then identify the next level version of you, so the next level version of leadership. So whether it's the what your body language is, how you comport yourself, how you conduct a meeting, how you show up in the world, how you approach problems, when you can identify that, then you can step into that authentically, you know, no fake it till you make it or anything like that. And that is how you be the leader that your business needs you to be.
It's how you grow.
It's how you grow, exactly.
And I mean, we won't go into imposter syndrome too much today, just because of time limitations, but it is a consistent theme. In any conversation that we've had in this series so far, we've talked about culture, we've talked about investment in professional development, particularly obviously with leaders. But the commonality is there is a thread of imposter syndrome seems to show up in all these conversations through one lens or another. So it feels like actually this is super common in lots of leaders, and whether it's recognised in yourself or not, it's this self-limiting belief that people bring and or show up with in terms of there's a lack of confidence somewhere, or there's a vulnerability. But from what I'm hearing is we should embrace that and we should step into it, because what we're doing is stepping into a phase of growth and betterment.
Completely, yeah. The latest studies suggest that 82% of professional women struggle with imposter syndrome. 82%.
I can believe that.
But it's entirely normal to have it. And I think it's really important to distinguish between imposter syndrome and self-doubt or lack of confidence, because imposter syndrome means that you have achieved a measure of success in order to feel fraudulent about.
Yeah.
So that's why I say celebrate it.
Because you're already there.
Yeah. It's all about being able to pick a new belief that aligns with that next level of leadership I just spoke about.
So, Claire, as we come to the end of our discussion today, if you could rip up one tradition or one role that you see as a common theme with the clients you work with, what would it be?
I think I'd say change your state and change your life. You know, we've talked a lot about strategy, we've talked about mindset, but actually that state change, giving yourself permission to conduct your business in a way that works for you, can lead to just wonderful, wonderful ideas. And yes, of course, walking, doing your meetings outside. I do a lot of podcast recording in the woods, going out wild swimming, just getting out in nature and getting fresh air and getting a fresh perspective can lead to all sorts of wonderful things. And I believe that every leader is sitting on ideas that they can't access because we are working, in offices or back bedrooms at home or just in traditional environments.
Yeah.
Let's rip up the rule book about how we conduct our businesses and access those inspirational ideas that are going to just change the face of businesses.
So true. Getting away from the distractions, the notification, the Amazon delivered guy knocking on the door. And an advocate of that, I can speak from experience, just not having the fun and just being out for a few hours in that open air and space allowed so much to flow.
Yeah.
And yes, so again, from personal experience, I would definitely support that every leader should take the space, even if it's just a walk and talk on a one-to-one. Some form of doing something different away from the traditional office environment.
Yeah, you just never know where it's going to lead.
Well, thank you so much, Claire, for joining us today. It's
My
been
pleasure.
lovely having you here. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.